Hello, my name is Dr. Claire Thomas-Pino and I'm the Chair of the Scientific Advisory Council for HHRF. I'm here today to share with you some information about our brand new innovation grant. So I'm going to start a little slideshow and head through the information so that hopefully that will answer many of the questions you might have. This is going to be our Dr. Mark Grisman $10,000 Equine Innovation Grant, which has been sponsored by Zoetis Equine and Friends. Sadly, Mark Grisman passed away, and he was the chair of the Scientific Advisory Council for HHRF. So we're honouring him here in this wonderful innovative grant opportunity. We're calling for proposals and seeking a really cool and innovative research project that hopefully will positively influence the well-being of horses through some really new, insightful techniques or applications that you have out there. The selected project can receive up to $10,000 to support the implementation, but also the evaluation of that proposed innovation that you have. In terms of our innovative grants, we're really looking for things that are going to advance knowledge, understanding, and application in equine-assisted services. We're also wanting you to think about how you can generate some data to provide validation for a novel approach or idea. Perhaps it's something that's going to aid methodologies for future research, or perhaps it's actually going to help in practice. But again, it's really having that very innovative idea that our grant can help you bring a little bit further and provide basically a pilot study. So we're really, the history of HHRF is that we really want to increase global knowledge of human and horse interactions, but their impact both on people and horses. And this grant in particular is very special because it's really looking at the impact on the horses. It has a maximum project duration of 12 months, so really want to think about that in terms of charting out what you're going to be doing, particularly if you're having to recruit anybody for this or you're having to develop that new approach or idea. Your budget can't exceed $10,000 and you're required to use correct terminology related to equine-assisted services, and that information is available at our website, horsesandhumans.org. We really want to increase scientific knowledge of these innovative practices and ideas, and it's really something that wouldn't be supported by a traditional channel. So it's really giving that opportunity for something that's a little bit unique, a little bit out there, and really at the ground level, ready to take flight. So we're really hoping that it's going to stimulate testing hypotheses, but also generate preliminary data and hopefully form the basis for future research. Your application must be submitted in electronic format, and you must email the completed application form to info@horsesandhumans.org. And the subject line of all emails, so it may be that you're sending more than one email because your documents might be quite large, or you might have gotten something the first time. Make sure that your email title is the complete title of your application. So we do accept multiple attachments and multiple emails. The cover page of your application requires you to provide a really specific and informative title of your project, the date that you're submitting it, the name and title of the principal investigators, that's the person who's responsible for the study, and the contact name and title. It may be that the contact person is not the same person as the principal investigator. The contact person should be somebody that is available and is going to be sending and receiving information with HHRF. We also want to know the institute, the establishment that you're working out of, and that address and both the physical and mailing address. A telephone contact number. A fax number may not be something that we need anymore, but we definitely need an email address, and if possible, a URL of your establishment and your primary focused area for this particular research project. In terms of writing your proposal, you've got 6 sections. We want you to use the guidelines and headings that we've provided, and we want you to write in a clear yet concise style so that someone outside your field can understand it, but also so that you provide sufficient detail but not too much sundry information. So you want to be really tight and clear in the information you provide. You can use figures for clarity, but they're not required. And the proposal should be less than 10 pages in length. That doesn't include the attachments and appendices. You should use 11-point font, ideally Times New Roman or Arial. It should be double space lines with 3/4 inch margins. This is because at least 2 people will review your application, and it's important that they can easily look through and make notes if they need to. You need to define any technical terms you use or any acronyms in that first use within your proposal. Your complete proposal, including attachments, should be converted into a single PDF prior to submission. So we really would prefer that you not submit multiple aspects. Yes, I know on the previous page I've said that you might do that, but it might be that you've forgotten something. But ideally, all your attachments in your completed proposal should be in one single PDF. Your citations and the accompanying reference list should be in the literature cited section. And this is something that I think is really important for you to recognize, that every time that you are citing something new, a new idea, an idea from the past that is supporting your current proposal, you really need to find a citation that supports that aspect. So it may be that it's something that has been used in a different species. It may be something that is like something else. Again, please make sure that you do cite other research, or you cite information that has led to the discovery of your innovative idea. It's important that we see that background and that you've clearly understood the literature that exists out there. Remember, those people that will be reviewing your application do have knowledge in several areas within the field. So it's not as if you can say, oh, there isn't any research out there, because it's likely that they might have actually written some of that research. And I think that's really, we can't hammer that home, that the existing research really must underpin any of your ideas, so that you're really clearly showing how far your innovative idea comes in advancing our knowledge and understanding. So in terms of those 6 sections, the first is your clear title of your project proposal. It includes the name, institution, and email address. So that's that previous document I showed you. Then you've got an introduction. So this is very similar to an introduction that you would produce for any sort of research plan or proposal or research paper. It's a synopsis of the research, clearly showing how your proposal fits into the bigger picture, how it fills a void within the current research, how it helps to move things forward. So you want to provide that broader topic understanding and clearly show the gap into which your research proposal fits. You also want some very specific objectives. So you want to provide a clear rationale for your project. You want to justify how your project will complement the areas just discussed in your background information. So again, we really want to see that you've understood what already exists in the field in terms of research and practice, and how what you're proposing is going to really add and move that forward. In terms of materials and methods, we want you to summarize your experimental design and methods. We want you to clearly explain how appropriate they are for this particular aspect that you're looking at. And we want detail provided for how you're going to complete that work, bearing in mind that the entirety of your project needs to be completed within 12 months. We want to see the experimental design in terms of how it's going to be carried out, how you're going to recruit participants, who your participants are planned to be, if you're having participants, what your procedure is, what materials and measures you're going to use, what design you're going to use for your study. In terms of any measures that you might be using, again, we want you to think about how those have been validated and what their reliability is for the particular population you're looking at. If you're thinking of a new measure, how are you going to validate that? Is that going to be compared to something that exists? And how does it differ from something that exists already? Why is it so much better? What type of data are you going to collect, and how are you going to analyze those results? We really want to see in terms of your methodology that it would be something that could be replicated by somebody else. So you need sufficient information in there, but again, it needs to be really concise because you've got a limited page number. In terms of a timeline, we want to make sure that that's actually realistic and you've carefully considered that for all aspects of the work. I think one of the areas that's often underestimated is if you are recruiting participants, how long that's actually going to take. You also have to think of the time of year. I know many of you in North America have large chunks of time when the weather is not necessarily cooperative, which can really impact how you work on your study. So think about all the different aspects that might come into play and might cause a potential problem or a little blip in that timeline, and allow for that, understanding how that would impact other aspects that need to happen. In terms of training, make sure that you have got all of your ICAC and IRB training already done so that you can put in your application. Ideally, that would have already been done. Again, that takes time and can take time out of that 12-month period of time for the research. So if you can get ICAC and IRB or other ethical approval, make sure it's done in a timely fashion. In terms of the impact, this is what's most important about our innovative grant, is what difference is your proposal going to make to the field of equine assisted service? How is it going to impact what you're able to do in the future, what other researchers are going to be able to be doing, both in the short and long term, and in terms of really making a change in the field and helping to make it a little bit easier for other people. So it may be that you've got something very, very cool that is going to make a huge difference to practice. It may be that it's something that's going to make a difference to research, but be really clear on what that is. In terms of our literature cited, this is basically your reference list here. Every single one of the articles that you have cited in your text needs to have a full entry in the literature cited section. So it needs to have a full reference, and make sure that this is in an accepted format for your discipline. It doesn't have to be an APA style, but you want to make sure it's in a clear and consistent style throughout, and that the style that you've put your literature cited is the same style in which you have cited your text, cited within the text. In terms of budget, we want that budget to be really clear and consistent. We not only want to see numbers that you're requesting, but we also want to see a written detail on each of the budget items that you have included. You may request funds for supplies, small equipment, and some services, but there are also some significant limitations on what you can and can't ask for in terms of your budget. We'll come to that in a moment. So in terms of how we're going to review your application, we're looking at it in terms of its innovation. So we want to make sure that it's a really original idea, that it should challenge our existing paradigms, present a different hypothesis, or address a really critical barrier that exists in the field. I know certainly within equine assisted psychotherapies and education, often the methodologies that we are able to use in research are quite limited. So perhaps you've got a really cool way for us to address that can make it a lot easier for us as researchers. We also want you to think about different concepts, different approaches, different tools, but also technology that can help both in research and practice. In terms of significance, we want you to be addressing something that we are aware of and you're aware of. And again, this is where your literature review comes into it, where there's a problem, where things are not running as smoothly as they could, where we really want to see that positive impact on the horses. So this research call is directly related to the equines that are included within equine assisted services. So how can we make sure that their lives are going to be better? How can we improve their well-being and their welfare? How can we make it easier for the people that work with them to understand how to make those improvements? So we're really hoping that you're going to advance scientific knowledge in that field. We're also going to hope that you're bringing a different approach, so perhaps a conceptual framework, a design and methodology that really can move things forward so that we can clearly see from what you're putting down in your application that this really is doable, that it's something that potentially has that opportunity to make a big difference. But we're also aware that sometimes things don't go as planned. And I think it's really important that we have research applications such as this, where you can try out something that a larger funded project might not fund, because there is a possibility that it might not work. So you want to acknowledge and be really clear about the areas where you think, this has the potential to do this, but it also has the possibility that it might not go to plan. So we want you to be aware and make us aware of those areas, and then we can decide whether it's something that we want to support. In terms of the investigator, we want to make sure that the PI and the entire research team are appropriately trained, so have a really good background and understanding in terms of their educational background, but also their practical experience, so that they can carry out this project to the full, and that they have a research environment that contributes to that likelihood of success, but also has the highest related safety and quality standards. We're really looking for you to guide us and share with us those ethical standards, those safety standards that will be in place, so that we know that where our fund money is headed is going to be the best place and with the best people to have a go at this really cool idea. We also want you to think about the impact that your project is going to have, and that it needs to follow HHRF's mission. When I first met Molly Sweeney in 2004, and she had the idea for HHRF, one of her big goals was really thinking about how can we make a difference in this field? How can we make a difference for people, for the horses, for the practitioners? How can we professionalize the field? And I'm hoping that through this innovation grant, you'll be able to bring to us some of the aspects of caring for our horses in equine assisted services, and really understanding a little bit more about how we can do that. So I think that's one of our really big missions with HHRF, is really making a huge difference for the horses and the people, and in this case for the horses. In terms of your success, if you do well and the review goes well, and you'll have, at least, as I said before, 2 reviewers, the highest scoring applications are invited to present an oral 20-minute presentation to our HHRF board for final consideration. So this gives you the opportunity that not only are we saying to you, you're one of the best applications, and this is one of the best ideas this time round with the best team. We're also saying to you that this is an opportunity for you to fill in any gaps. So you should have received some feedback, as you all will, based on the reviews that have been done. And if there are any areas of question within that feedback, it's important that during this oral presentation, you address those, because if you don't, there likely will be questions about those. So it is really your opportunity to sort of fill in any gaps, but also there's likely to be a significant time that's lapsed between when you submitted your application and when you're called for your oral presentation, so a couple of months. And if there are any other things that you've thought of, any developments that have happened, you're also able to share them with us at that time. So one of the things that I want you all to make sure that you really read through, and I'm not going to read through each detail, are the research grant conditions of the award. You need to make sure you understand each of the points. It's very, very important. You are basically signing your life away to agreeing and adhering to all of them. So make sure you understand them. If you have any questions about any of them, please don't hesitate to contact us at HHRF. And remember that the grant is in US dollars. We do require that you have both animal and human use ethics approval for your research project before you commence. So read through all of those, make sure you've understood them. I also want to share with you at this time, and we've shared with you on the documentation, how your application will be scored by the reviewers. It's scored in terms of scientific merit, potential impact, and the quality of the proposal. We're looking at your hypotheses or objectives and making sure that they're really clear, but also that they're not only clear, but that your methodology really can answer them. We often have, sadly, a lot of research applications which cannot be, the methodology is not appropriate for addressing the hypotheses or objectives. So it's really important that you understand that. We also want to clearly see that you understand data analysis and what type of data analysis you are most likely to use for assessing the data that you receive from your study. And we want to make sure that your research is actually going to address the problem that you're describing. So it's going to make a difference. So that leads on to that potential impact. We want to make sure that the study addresses a significant issue related to equine assisted services. We want to see that you have understood the potential benefits for practitioners. And we want to make sure that the quality of your application is really appropriate. So I will say that things like subheadings, things like structure and formatting are really, really important. I know this is not a large grant, but it still matters. And it matters that that you care about the way that your information is presented. So we want to make sure that you're really aware of the timeline, that you're thinking about facilities and equipment, that you also have put your grant application together in a very methodical and thoughtful way, and that your budget is clearly explained and is appropriate for what you're asking. So finally, if you have any questions, we would be most grateful if you could email us at info@horsesandhumans.org. And thank you so very much for